You are currently the only person in this conference.
So we're going to continue talking about the floor plans and try to get those in a good shape today. So if you bring up your file from last class, right, you'll have your properties. You can also bring up the layer properties. You can put those down here. Make them a little bit bigger if you want. You can also put it on auto hide, so it only shows up when you're hovering over it, which is very helpful. So for example, you would want to set your image layers to the 0 image layer, and you can freeze them by turning them on or off. You could also, when you click those image layers, you can also fade. So you could fade them like 50%, so the lines are easier to see. You could also turn on this background transparency, which also allows you to see through them. Maybe it's better if it's like 75%, however you want it to do it. And then you could also use the command MA, which is a match properties, right? So a match properties, just by typing MA, enter, you click the item you want to match, you click the item you want to match it to, and whatever you set, sometimes it doesn't work, but whatever you set one property to, it would set the other one to that same thing. For example, if you drew a guideline and you wanted to match the properties of the other guidelines, you type MA, enter, guideline, then click that line, and now it matches that same property. So you don't have to go through the tedious method of going here and then picking the layer and then trying to find the right layer. If you know what layer it is, you could just type in MA. If it's the layer next to it, click the layer next to it, and then click the layer you want to switch it to, and it helps. And then just press the escape key to get out of the command. Right? So the reason we chose the dimensions, right, is so that everything can be a consistent dimension. So we can maintain that 54:10 to 21:9 ratio between all the floors. So we have the walls layer here, and that's about 8 inches thick. So the way that we start populating this isn't just by drawing it, but it's also by annotating it, by putting the dimensions on it, right? So if you look at in the template that we set up, there's an A0 and an A1. Those are the sheets. You might not have this background yet, but I can show you how to download that later. And then this is called a viewport. So the viewport layer is specific because if it was on any other layer, for example, and when you go to print it, that rectangle shows. So we put it on a viewport layer that's set up here. Because when we go to print the viewport layer specifically, it does not print. It does not print that window, right? So this window just literally acts as a window into the model of the drawing, right? So we set this up so that this piece of paper is a piece of paper. This paper space is a piece of paper. So if I went to plot, which is how to print something, it's a 24 by 36 piece of paper that's already set up. I don't change any of the settings on you. It's just already set up, right? So this is where you put your first floor plan. This is not our first floor plan, right? This is the floor plan of the example. So how to move it is you can click the viewport, and there's a little lock button here. If it's locked, you would unlock it to move it. If it's not locked, it's not locked. So when it's unlocked, you can actually double click into the window, right? And it literally acts just like the model space. So you can zoom in or zoom over to your first floor plan, and it'll print whatever we've drawn for the first floor plan, right? So this is just on the paper space. On A1, for example, if we wanted this to be the first and second floor plan or the first floor in the basement. But you'll notice that it's at 1/4 scale, right? So 1/4 scale means it's a scale that someone in the architectural field would use to draw or measure off, right? It's a typical scale. So that scale, if you click your viewport, you can set that scale to your drawing. You can set it at 1/4 scale. And we do that. So if you don't zoom in enough, right? Say you're zooming in all the way out here, it's to a random scale. So you could set any scale you want. But the one that we're using for this project right now is 1/4 scale. And then once you put it at 1/4 scale around the area of the first floor plan, you then click the lock button and it locks it so you don't accidentally double click in here and start moving around and moves the viewport. You want to keep the viewport maintained because that's not really changing. It's just the location of what you're printing. What you're drawing is over here, but what we're printing is over here. So those graphics, well, it's not like what I just did. Those graphics want to be separated. There's like a drawing space and a printing space, and you just want to make sure that you're controlling what's going to be printed. So in my printed version, I have the image turned off because that image layer, if I look at the image layer, it's on a no print, right? So it's not going to print that image no matter what. Same thing with the guides that I set up. The guides are on no print right there. So just because I see them here doesn't mean they're going to print when I'm on my, when I go to print. So if I try to print, I'm only seeing the dimensions. Now we set those scales on purpose so that our text and our dimensions can also be the same size throughout all of our drawings. And we do that by going down here to the bottom right, and you could set that to 1/4 as well. Most of the drawings that we're going to be drawing with are going to be at 1/4. Now, just because we go to the annotate tab and we draw a dimension doesn't mean it's automatically going to be a 1/4 scale. Ideally, if I did this 0.25-inch scale, hopefully that's the right one. Yeah, you're in the wrong location. There we go. So that would look pretty nice on a 24 by 36 inch piece of paper, right? If I tried to print this 21 right now, that 21 in real life is almost a quarter inch tall. It's like this tall. Like you'd be able to see it from across the room. You don't need to see things from across the room because it's not a presentation. It's an architectural drawing, right? So you don't need it to be yelling at you. Now, we set up in the template these scales. So when you're drawing at 1/4 inch, if you go to this 1/4 inch area over here, you can actually go to MA and you can match the properties of this 1/4 inch dimension, and you can tag that one and then tag this one, and it'll do it for you. Now, I know I'm the one that set up this template and gave it to everybody, but that doesn't mean I like it, because all of this is on the dimension layer, and the dimension layer is this light blue, right? But there's nothing about this that tells me that it's on the dimension layer. So what really should happen is this line color that's red should be by layer, and this line color that's red should be by layer, and the text should be by layer. And now you know that it's on the dimension layer. Like it's this blue color that we said is this dimension layer. So the text is on the text layer. So when we have a room, right, we could select this text, go to copy, click there, bring it over here, paste it, and this room is the study. So to type in AutoCAD like a text layer or a text box, it's just a regular text box, like it's a PowerPoint presentation or something, right? It has boundaries. So when you click on it once, it has properties. There's the text layer. It has contents, which don't really mean anything. It has a style of text, which we don't have to change. The main thing is that if you double click it, that's how you start typing. So I could change the room name to study, and we write in all capital letters. The room dimensions, right? We could do 8 foot 8 inches by 12. Well, usually I do horizontal first. 12 feet 8 inches by 8 feet 11 inches, whatever that says. That might not even be right. Maybe that's 13.4. I can read sometimes. 13. So you do like that. Honestly, that looks okay. What sometimes looks better is like a bold. So like you can tell the difference between a name and a dimension. You can also even underline, and you can add, when we get to it later, we could learn how to take the area of some of the rooms. That's kind of over here, right? So if you draw different lines, you can actually grab multiple lines, and if you use the word join, just type it in join, press enter, and now it turns it into a proper rectangle. And now that it's a proper rectangle, if you go to the properties and hover over the area, it tells you that it's 113 square feet. So under these dimensions, you could write, study 113 square feet. Or you could do 113. Good information to have. Now you know if the floor is carpet, you have to buy 113 square feet of carpet, minimum. Right. Okay, so say you did this, and say you kind of drew areas for all the rooms, or you drew an area for the building. How do you not make the area show? Right, when you're printing, because you drew it over here. But what if I go over here And when I go to print it, I don't want that line to show. What you can do, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want in this beautiful program, is go down to your layers. So the layer I'm drawing is with wall, right? You can hover over a layer, right click, new layer. Now I have a new layer called area. You could also use the acronym NPLT. If you ever see that, it means no plot, so it's not going to print. So sometimes people use that acronym when something doesn't want to print on a layer. So you can, once you have this new layer, you then click the little print button. So that's the negative on the printer, and now that line will never print. The reason why I didn't do that is because I didn't go back to the line and I didn't assign it to that layer. So, no plot area. So now it won't ever print that box. And when I'm drawing, if those area lines get annoying, I go to my layer manager and I just go to that layer and I can turn it off while I'm drawing. Turn it on when you need it, turn it off when you're drawing. It's a really good tool, right? My trick is I do have area lines, but sometimes I also just have ceiling lines. And then I have a boundary for where the ceiling is. And that kind of gives you the area of the room. It's a neat little trick. Okay. So here's some rooms. So I set the annotation scale to 1/4. So what that means is, see, these aren't annotated, whatever. All right. So say I'm starting to type and I don't want, and I forget that there's already a type scale set to it. Like there's already, I forget about these guys that I could just copy over, right? So if I just start typing, how do I do that? So I go over here and I wanted to write excavate 2 feet below whatever, or heater room, right? I'll put heater room right here. You go to annotate, and there's a text box. There's a multi-line text box. You click that, you click once, you click again, and you just start typing. Heater room. That's it. You could set the layer, right? You can even set the scale. Say you type in the word scale like we did for the drawings. And you could change the scale. If you want it big, you want it small, whatever you want to do, right? You could use the scale tool, or you could just type in, hey, I want it to be 6 inches high. It's literally like the text box is 6 inches in real life because, you know, the walls are 8 inches. So this is just going off of what it is in the model space. So technically, if I wanted it to be 6 inches, it's the same thing as if I drew it, you know, a 6-inch wall. It's the same height. So say I forgot and then I realized, oh yeah, those text boxes are over there. You don't have to retype the text, just use the match properties again. So go to MA, press enter, zoom out to where you drew that text box over here, click that, click over here, and now it matches. It doesn't do like the bold and the underline because I have multiple types of, you know, formats in that one little text box, but the size is right. Right? Does that kind of make sense? So say I wanted to draw a line to point to what this column is, right? So it's not like the room text, it's a different one. So I can go to text. It says reference keynote. text straight line leader. There we go. So under keynoting, there's a word text straight line leader. So that means I click once for my leader point. I click again for the leader point to stop. And if I press enter, I can start typing. So this brings up multiple lines, and obviously it's way too big. So if you look at the example text, it's 6 inches high, right? So if I go over here, I could set the text height in the properties. That's not 6 inches. Hold on. So the best thing to do, go over here to my leader lines, and I have a text at 1/8 inch scale, and I can match the properties of this one. I click that one, and now it's all set up. Right? So over here, I could write 2. What do we think? That's 2 feet by 2.5, 2.5 by 2.5, or 2 feet? Yeah, 2 by 2 column. 2 feet by 2 feet concrete here. Looks like that's what that says. Right? So say you wanted this to be like a multi-line text, right? Because when you click here, see how it's only a single line. If you drag this arrow over, it adds like that justification. And then that's how those kind of outlines show. So you can put it in the floor plan, you can put it out of the floor plan. That's how to do a leader text. Match properties for dimensions, leader text. So if you wanted to do the blue ones, we go over here. I made these blue, 1/4 scale. That one, like that one. It's much easier to see. Because the problem is you don't want to accidentally like draw these dimensions on the image layer. You won't know that you switched it. So when you go to print, your basement plan, they don't print. If this white ever bothers you because there's a lot of yellow text and you can't really see what you're doing, there's ways to change that. So if you're the type of person that visually this doesn't really work for you, this really bright screen and this really dark text, you go to home. Sorry, if you click the architecture button at the top left, options, and you go to display. Okay. Color theme is dark. I don't know what that is. There's also light. That's light. That's insane. Okay. Under display, there's display file. There's colors at the bottom here. Uniform background, paper background. You could do sheet and layout. Uniform background. Okay, so the uniform background is this white. So see how it says white here? You could make that the same as the gray that's over here. But you could also change this background to black. Or vice versa, you change this one to black and the paper just other ways to kind of handle it. All right. can get confusing. It's been on the top left. It's under options. Colors. Doesn't like that. Colors. Paper background. White. Also classic colors. Apply and close. Anybody have any questions about any of that so far? There's also a setting, and I'll give it to you guys later in like an update, but there's a setting to when you're doing the plotting. We do this at work. We get rid of all the colors. So you don't have to look at it in layers. It just shows you what color it's going to look like when it's printed. So you don't have to look at like, oh, that's orange. It'll actually show you what line weight that is. So I'll give that to you guys later. I just don't know the command off the top of my head. All right. So the idea is that we can start setting up our sheets. So if you looked at, the viewport, so if you want this to be the first floor plan, you can grab the viewport in the text and move it down with the move tool. You can grab the viewport in the text and you can copy it, move it up so that they're aligned. And now you can move this viewport by clicking it and dragging it, right? But this is only showing you the first floor plan, right? So I can click this one. I'll drag this one up a little bit further, right? So to get to the basement floor plan, you can click this viewport and you can drag it up because it's locked, right? So it's not letting you zoom in and out, and you have the same scale. So if you just move the viewport up by just clicking these nodes, right? And then use the move tool and move it down, you now have the basement, right? So you can get all these little title card things. And this could be drawing number 1. Let's make that 2. Or, drawing number 1. First floor plan, basement floor plan, and it's at the same scale. So all I did to change the text was just double click it. And you can change these little nodes so that the line covers, the text at a minimum. And now you have your two drawings kind of spaced out nicely. So if you were to print it, that's what we have so far, right? To make another page, because you need your second floor plan, right? This is really just all about floor plans. So to make your next floor plan, these tabs at the bottom, A0 is your cover sheet. A1 could be your basement and first floor plan. So if you have A2, all you have to do on the bottom left is on one of those layouts, right click, go to move and copy, move to the end, create a copy, and press OK. It's just like Excel. So on that tab at the bottom, it's A1, copy 2, right click, rename, A2. That's it. Just remember that over here, I have it titled. This could be A2. This could be just second floor plan right now. Maybe we'll have a roof plan. And just remember to update these. So the best part about these layouts is that you can still draw lines on top of it, right? So I could draw a line here to show me that that's where I want to place my second floor plan. So I can bring this over here. I can unlock it, zoom out, double click to enter the viewport, zoom out, move to the second floor plan, update the scale to 1/4, click out of it, go back and lock it, click, make sure you're not clicked into it, and then you can take that box and move our 0, 0 point to that same line. In that line, which is great, we could set to a no plot layer, so we'll never see it. And now the second floor plan is at the same spot as where the first, the basement floor plan was, so it's consistent. And all the drawing numbers start at 1 again per page. The amount of drawings, we'll talk about that more later, but the amount of drawings just keep moving around. And then maybe down here we'll have the roof plan. So a really helpful tool that I usually use, right, is if I go to annotate, I'll do a text box like this big, and I'll write and then I'll scale it up, and I'll set that to a no plot layer so that when I'm moving around my drawings, say I want this up here, and maybe I want it a little bit bigger. Right? Never forget the scale of the drawing, and I never forget what I'm drawing while I'm drawing. And it'll never show up when I'm printing. Does that make sense? So these are the drawing scales that we're really going to use. So you can even like highlight it while you're using it. Make sure your dimensions are set to the same levels. Okay. So today I want us to start drawing the floor plan and ask me these questions while you set up a sheet or two. So once you have a sheet set up, I can teach you how to print. And it's really good to do that. Okay. So today I want us to try to like get to this level where we can set up the floor plans on a sheet, all at the same scale. Right. See, this is the first floor plan, so that's not supposed to be there. Okay. And start drawing the walls. So if we forgot from last time, we're just going to trace the walls. Maybe it's like 4 inches. Here's another inch. Okay. And that stair looks roughly great. Stair looks 3 feet. So how would you draw this stair, right? If I start it over here on the first step, is roughly off that wall, let's say that's 2 feet 3 inches. I'll use the trim tool. Right. When you're using the trim tool, TR, enter, you can hold down shift and it turns into the extend tool. If you hold down shift, it extends it, or if you just click, it's trimmed, press escape. So if I have this singular line, let's make sure that the stairs are consistent. So the first step, like 9 inches, which is pretty weird for stairs, but that's what it is. So you click the first one, you can do copy, click the one behind it, and then just go along the way, all the way down. Based on how I'm moving this, it might be 10 inches, but that's what I've done so far, so I'm kind of committing to that. And if you go back, select all those lines, they're not walls, they're not steel, they're stairs. You use the match properties tools to select that one, and select that one. There you go. Does that kind of make sense? Since we are drawing the walls today, I'll show you one more thing. So I went over annotations, the room tags, the walls, some area things, dimensions, creating new layers. The next thing would be this angle, right? What I would do is pick one, and we're just going to stick with that angle. So everyone's going to draw the same wall, the same angle, right? So what you could do is click where it starts. And if you have your ortho turned on, you can turn it off and click where it ends. Right? It's kind of giving me 20 degrees. Right? However, I don't know for sure. So if I go to the EX button to extend, click it. You can go to Annotate tab and click the dimension angular. So there's linear dimensions, which we've been using, angular dimensions. So if you click the first line and the second line, I know that that's rounding, because if I click that line and go over here, it's 19.76, right? So this is kind of lying to me. However, that 20 degrees makes sense. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from that point to the end of the wall. Here's a new line. And I'm going to rotate tool. You can freely rotate it. And I'm going to rotate it 20 degrees. And I'm going to delete that line. Now, just so I save that line, right, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to set it to the note plot layer. Or even better, I can set it to a guide. And that'll be my guide for that line. And what you should do is lock those guides so they don't move while you're drawing them. So it's always going to be there. I always know that it's 20 degrees. And I can even go over here, go to Annotate, Angular Dimension. And same thing. Just so you know, you can set it and then lock it. So you can always remember that it's 20 degrees. So you can copy those dimensions or that line. So I drew a new line for the wall, copied it, and you're not going to get it exactly. However, if you go to those snaps at the bottom, you can go to perpendicular, And if you click on perpendicular, you can actually hover, or you should be able to hover, the perpendicular line. So it might be a 1 foot 4 inch thick wall. So I type in 1 foot 4 inches, and now it's a perpendicular dimension. So it's a little tricky. You want to turn on and turn off a few things to let you draw that line. You could also use the offset tool. So if you use offset, when you click that line, click one line, and then click 1 foot 4 inches. It's kind of asking for the dimension, 1 foot 4 inches. And you could offset it, and offset is always perpendicular. That's a good trick. But it's the same thing. So you could take those lines, even, and you can copy them down over here when you're drawing your first floor. And you could draw where that roof and walkway is. So just keep it at 20 degrees. It's the only angle in the project. Right? We'll do this stair at a different day, because I don't want to introduce too much, but that roof, same thing. We can just say that it's 20 degrees. So I'll copy those 20-degree lines, move them down here, and maybe they're maybe that's 4 feet. To kind of figure out where that roof is. By moving things, right? So just start tracing and drawing, setting up these little sheets. And I know this says a different project, but like the images, they're just XREFs. So this whole thing, this whole drawing is an XREF that I'll update and give to you later. So you don't have to worry about changing it, right? I just want to explain, like, this is the model space. These are the sheets of paper. These are the viewports. When you double click them, it opens up the model space. You could tell because it says the word model down here. To turn that off, you click it again, and now you're in the paper space. Double click, you're in the model space. If it's locked, it won't zoom in, so you got to unlock it, and it lets you zoom in and out. You want it to be at the quarter scale. So when you're at the quarter scale on your paper space, you want the viewports to be at quarter scale. Right? So I'll say what I'm doing.